Hi everybody, welcome back to Echo. We're going to continue on with Flynn's route today. I'm gonna have to split this video in a weird place without technically fully ending Friday. You'll see in the episode after this one why I'm having to do that. Regardless of that, let's get started. I bring the tripod back over my shoulder, wincing some as the metal pushes against my collarbone. There wasn't really much left of the old post office, but getting some B-roll of it seemed obligatory with the Pony Express history here and such. As long as I have lots of filler footage to accompany my voiceover, I should be fine. I think it'll probably look a lot better than most of what the rest of the class will present, though that's not a very high bar to surpass. Most probably wouldn't dare work over their spring break. So why the hell am I? I close my eyes, letting my legs lead the way as I step through the tall grass and back onto the dirt road. It's hot today. Way hotter than it usually is in late spring. Everything is kinda hazy, too. Like there's wildfire air blowing downwind through Echo. Those usually drive my allergies nuts, but so far I'm not feeling too stuffed up or itchy. As screwed up as it sounds, I always kinda liked when there was a big fire in this state. I mean, sure, it sucks sneezing all the time and having my nose feel scratchy, but I love the burning smell. It reminds me of barbecues. It doesn't smell like that now, though that does remind me. I pull up my phone. It's 10:03 a.m. Jenna texted earlier.
Chase, Leo wants to set up his grill at the hill behind your house. Around early afternoon, I think. If you want to stop by, you can.
When we were kids, sometimes my dad would let us roll a little charcoal grill up there and try cooking ourselves. My dad always said it was to keep a wide buffer between us and the house, so we didn't accidentally burn the place down. After Flynn set a bush on fire in our backyard during Labor Day, I kind of understood the sentiment. I exhale, shoving my phone back in my pocket. Interesting that Leo decided to schedule it while Flynn is still working. I bring my thumb and forefinger above my muzzle and press at the space between my eyes. I sniff, smelling the faint scent of musty ash that seems to cling to my fur even after the shower I took this morning. And just like that, my blood seems to cool. I get that weird stuttering feeling you have in your heart when you remember something you don't want to. Last night doesn't seem real. I can't believe shit like that exists, just past where I grew up. How long has that place been around? It doesn't even have a name. I searched the address some more when I got home, but I didn't find anything online. I mean, I've been in gay bars before up in Hayton, usually because some girl I'm friends with drags me there. But nothing quite like that. At least Daxton seemed to not hate it completely by the time we left. Turns out the middle-aged horse guy was an old dastry, the term for people who really like Ad Astra. Daxton and him hit it off pretty well while I was away. Carl, meanwhile, was already passed out in my car by the time we got back. It was an awkward car ride home. A strange sense of sad nostalgia takes hold of me as I approach the faded white, old brick structure that was my house. The white picket fence that surrounded the exterior is all but gone now. The few remaining posts are scattered all over the yard, some half buried in the loose, barren topsoil. I remember Dad always made me paint it every summer, and I'd pitch a huge fit because I hated it. Working in 110-degree temperatures with scratchy bramble getting stuck on my pads, not to mention the dirt on the paintbrush. Dad never was happy with how it turned out anyway. He'd yell at me for laziness and doing a poor job. He claimed I had no aptitude for work, first placing the blame on me playing too many video games, then Leo. People are supposed to have a sense of satisfaction in their work, but every moment away from an escapist diversion seemed to make me miserable. I'd coop myself up on my room with a big-ass plug-in fan, watching TV, daydreaming about fictional guys, and eating just an absurd amount of cereal. I sigh as I walk over an old plot where Mom's garden used to be. According to City Hall, this place is abandoned and condemned now. I step up to the window of my old bedroom, squinting through the dusty glass and spying the familiar turquoise shag carpet inside. All the furniture is gone, and spiderwebs hang from every corner. There's some graffiti on the wall as well. A gang sign or something that looks like a crooked red number 8. Seeing it, I'm left with a feeling of unease, like the sanctity of what was once mine has been taken away. I don't exactly pine for the days of being stuck in there, but there's this overwhelming pang of awareness that those times have passed and are never coming back. The worries I had growing up are gone, and replaced by these visceral, very adult concerns about money, jobs, debt. And I'll never have a group of friends like I did back then. A sharp whistle breaks my train of thought. I spin around to see the silhouette of 2 figures up on the hill overlooking the house. Leo and Jenna. After a moment, TJ walks up next to them and waves.
Hi, Chase!
I lift my paw up, offering a limp wave in return. Next thing I know, TJ is making his way down the slope, Leo right behind him. Jenna follows shortly after.
Chase, it's good to see you again.
The lynx looks tired, all things considered, the tips of his fur tinged with the orangish dirt of the area. Still, he's beaming at me regardless. It's good to see you too, actually. TJ cocks his head.
Actually?
I blink. Yeah, what do you mean by that, Otter? Leo has a stern voice, his eyes hard upon me.
I mean, you know what I mean.
A smirk appears at the edge of the wolf's muzzle, and he steps up to me, slugging my shoulder with enough force to sting a bit. Well, astonishingly, it's good to see you as well. I wince a bit from the blow. Leo reaches over and ruffles my head fur. Sorry. He grins a little awkwardly. He seems cheery overall. It's hard to believe he's the same Leo that just yesterday I was hiding in a bathroom cupboard from. I try not to look too tense.
Next time, hit him harder.
Jenna gives me an edged look, though there's warmth to her eyes.
Jenna?
She looks me over, then glances toward the road.
I'm surprised he didn't drive.
We found a picnic table in one of the yards of the abandoned houses. We set it up over there. He points to the base of the hill slope, where sure enough, an old wooden picnic table sits. And TJ was okay with this? The lynx frowns, digging his toes into the dirt.
Well, as long as we put it back when we're done.
You're becoming quite the rebel, TJ. I manage to smile at him. He looks slightly aghast, though Leo chuckles.
We should put the hot dogs on the grill now. The bacon won't take as long.
Jenna turns, making her way over to the table. Beside it is a green, portable propane grill, like the sort you use for camping trips. On top of the grill are a couple of Ziploc bags. We're gonna grill up these fancy pepper jack hot dogs we got in Peyton, and some applewood smoked bacon. That sounds good. We even got some tofu dogs for Carl. Just like old times, yeah? I hope we've gotten better at cooking since then, but, where's Carl? Leo shrugs, TJ chiming in.
Maybe he slept in? It's kind of early. For him, I mean.
We make our way over toward Jenna. Leo's tail wags slightly as he walks. I set my gear down and peer at the table. Excuse me. The thing is dirty as hell. Probably over a decade of dust and weather etched into the wood and metal. I can't remember what neighborhood this belonged to. Over the years there were so many. Usually hippies or retirees seeking to get away from the hustle and bustle of urban and even suburban living. Most became rather disillusioned with the idea of Echo being some lovely desert escape after about a month of living here, though. I glance up at Leo. He looks back at me. He's taking the hot dogs out of the packaging and getting them set up on the grill. The wolf doesn't say anything, and neither do I. He keeps making the same, faintly awkward smile whenever I look at him too long. TJ and Jenna have sat down at the table and are digging through a weathered backpack. Jenna takes out some paper plates, setting out a small stack and weighing them down with a rock so they don't blow away.
That seems kind of unhygienic. Don't worry, we won't eat off that one.
She looks up and over at me.
We'll just give it a chase.
TJ frowns and shakes his head. I sigh, furrowing my brow some. Look, I'm sorry I haven't been around much this whole trip. I kinda regret it too.
Really?
The Finnick responds with a tone of feigned surprise, though when we lock eyes, she seems to waver some. She crosses her arms over her tank top's chest, looking down, then back up again.
It's okay. It's been an interesting few days for us.
I raise a brow inquisitively. Yeah? Same here. Jenna smiles some in an apologetic fashion, and I move to sit next to her. TJ reaches into the bag and holds up a few bottles of condiments to me.
We got jalapeno ketchup, relish, spicy mustard, and a baggie of chopped onions.
Sounds delicious, TJ.
Yes, I know it's a spice overload, but it is to appease Leo's iron palate.
Hearing his name, Leo waves at us. You know, I read an article once that people who like spicy foods have masochistic tendencies. Jenna rolls her eyes, glancing to Leo, then back to me.
Only you could confirm that in Leo's case. As for the article, yes, I've heard that before. It's pop psychology and based off survey statistics.
What about me? One of Leo's ears flicks to point in our direction.
Chase was just telling us about your masochistic tendencies.
Leo stops what he's doing, looking at us with slightly widened eyes. My what? Oh god. I cover my face with my paw. I wouldn't say I'm into that. You shouldn't be talking about people behind their back, Chula. He says this teasingly, stretching out some aluminum foil on the grill and placing the strips of bacon on it.
Someone should have told you that earlier. You've been talking about Chase nonstop this week.
Leo stiffens some, then tries to laugh it off. What? Was just worried about him. You, I mean. He looks to me. With Flynn being all unstable and shit. TJ flinches at the swearing. I'm surprised the Lynx was unperturbed during the masochism talk. Maybe he doesn't know what that is? I rub my arms apprehensively, peering at Jenna. What sort of stuff was he saying about me? Jenna looks in that wry way she does when she finds herself in a position of advantage over Leo. Leo looks at her, anxious. Nothing bad, Otter. I bet my neck.
Maybe it's best if you two find some time to talk alone today.
The Finnick looks at Leo, as if having delivered an act of supreme mercy. Leo, in turn, looks grateful, keenly aware he has become indebted by the act. Right. We were planning on that anyway, I think? Jenna just nods.
Good.
You all need to stop distracting the cook here. Chase, can you... Past the sizzling of the grill, the clops of hooves on dirt becomes audible. TJ cranes his neck some to peer past Leo, then smiles.
Carl! And, oh, hi!
Yo.
Hi.
Carl immediately plops himself down on the table across from me, the ram rubbing his eyes with his fists. Oops, that's at the table, not on it. Daxton, meanwhile, lingers at the end. His eyes are on me, as if waiting for something. Oh, hey Daxton. I didn't know you were coming?
Carl invited me. I wasn't really doing much else today.
I put on a smile, but seeing the two just sort of reminds me all of last night.
Good to meet you. I'm Jenna.
Jenna offers a quick nod. Meanwhile, TJ seems to bolt up, offering a paw to the salamander.
Hi, I'm TJ. It's good to meet a friend of Carl's.
Daxton looks a little surprised, shaking TJ's paw before looking back to me. He still has that same expectant expression on his face. Daxton? Flynn's roommate, right? Leo strolls up beside him, spatula in grasp.
I'm said roommate, yeah. Wait, you look familiar?
Leo squints. You the Vespa guy? Daxton looks back toward the road.
Yeah, I drive a...
Let me try that again.
Yeah, I drive a Vespa. Why?
Leo lets out a humored noise, rubbing his brow with his free paw as he grins. You came to my dad's shop about the oil leak in that thing. Daxton blinks in realization.
Oh, Alvarez Auto up in Peyton. Yeah, I went there.
That thing was a damn nightmare. At first I thought you were just using the wrong type of oil, since that's the most common reason. People don't know they gotta use motorcycle oil, which lathers the transmission, gears, valves, and all that. Plus it's less thick. But the thing was still leaking. So next I drained the overflow tube on the airbox and troubleshooted. Took me about 2 hours until I figured out that it had to do with the piston rings being worn out. Problem is, your little ride's a damn special overseas import, yeah? There's no place that has the replacement parts you needed for at least 7,000 miles.
I inherited it from my uncle in the old country. I guess that's why it took so long?
Yeah. Can't say I'd ever worked on a machine like that prior to you, so thanks for the experience. Like I was saying, my dad owns that place. I'm Leo Alvarez. Leo extends out a paw, though with less gusto than TJ.
Leo.
I see Daxton's gaze flick to me, his lips pulling a bit tighter on his smooth face. He takes the paw, shaking it. Leo perks a brow. Judging by the look on your face, you've heard of me?
A wee bit.
All good, I hope.
Leo smiles lopsidedly. Not really, but whatever.
The response elicits a collective ugh from most of us. The salamander withdraws his hand and Leo looks a little gobsmacked. Your roommate's Flynn, so I guess that's to be expected. Daxton shrugs, then moves to sit at the table next to me.
Chase, if you got a minute, could we talk later?
Sure? The salamander looks grateful, but doesn't elaborate further. Leo, meanwhile, stands there rotating the spatula in his paws with his eyes on the dirt. After a moment, he turns, heading back to the grill with an expression on his face that I can't quite make out. Jenna props her chin up with her paw, smiling faintly at Daxton.
Wow. What? Nothing, just musing out loud. Where are you from, Daxton?
The salamander rests his hand on the table, rubbing his thumbs together.
I've been living here in Echo for a year or two. Before that, I was in Colville, where I grew up.
Ugh. Jenna stops smiling.
Colville? Really? What? What's wrong with Colville?
Everything, dude. Colville. Isn't that the place with the lampposts that have little cowboy hats on top of them?
Oh yeah! They have the cobblestone streets there. I went for a field trip once.
That place is too rich, even for me.
They put up those creepy, smiling native mannequins on the sidewalks as decorations. Like it isn't grossly offensive knowing its history.
Oh yeah. They shot that one big Western film there. The one with Jack Gillahue searching for some family's daughter that got abducted by the Meseta? The town sort of rode off the fame of that movie for the past 40 years, from what it seems like. Daxton looks at all of us, crossing his arms tightly over his chest.
It hasn't been doing as well as it used to.
Westerns aren't exactly as big as they used to be.
It's kind of a shame that. It's not really a surprise noting how tasteless most of them were.
Carl shifts in his seat a bit awkwardly. TJ speaks up.
Speaking of Old West stuff, how goes the project, Chase? Leo said you couldn't hang out with us because you were working on it.
Jenna reaches into the backpack and pulls out a notebook, laying it out in front of her.
We were bored at the motel, so we did some research ourselves. If you want to discuss your findings, that is.
I feel a little put on the spot, mainly since most of what I've done so far has been shooting B-roll. Apparently my house used to be a castle.
A castle?
Yeah. I looked up Carl's house at City Hall. The records showed this big, medieval-looking place. There was some sort of collapse in 1915. Living in a castle would be pretty cool. Not that I need more space, but you get what I mean.
House Hendricks, the Lords of Echo. I would watch that show.
We'll probably have too much sex and violence for you, man.
I truly doubt there would be much of the former with you on it.
Carl lets out a little snicker before drifting his gaze to the sizzling grill nearby. Even Daxton seems to smirk a bit. If you say so. TJ flinches at the lewd talk, and Jenna quickly shifts her tone.
Continue, Chase.
Well, that's the thing. Carl's ancestors founded the town, but I think Flynn's family are the ones who mainly controlled it during the 20th century. There's tons of more names in the records for leadership positions. We were too busy making ice cream, I guess. Speaking of, I'm starving. How much longer, man? He calls out to Leo, the wolf looking over his shoulder. Unless you want your hot dogs medium rare, just a little longer, yeah? Jenna waves off the boy's banter, speaking to me again.
That's strange, noting Flynn's species. Reptilians weren't readily trusted by majority society in this country until relatively recently.
I shrug. I'm not sure whether it's relevant to what I'm trying to cover. I mean, I haven't been able to find anything about the initial 1877 hysteria incident. It's like all those files are just gone. I pause, chewing my lower lip as I remember something. There were some legal documents I found, concerning the mine.
I don't know, but go on.
There is mention of some sort of messed up murder happening in the mine in 1915 that somehow resulted in a riot. No mention was made of the 1877 hysteria event, though. Jenna pulls her notes up, her eyes bouncing left and right as she speed reads.
That's interesting. You mentioned that year earlier, 1915. The census recordings show there was a large drop of population between 1910 and 1920. I couldn't find any economic justification for it, since the mine continued to operate and the railroad line still serviced Echo.
Daxton holds up his hand.
So, sorry, I'm trying to catch up to what you guys are trying to figure out here. Are you saying that these mine murders caused Echo to lose all its people? The correlations do not imply causation, but this is for Chase's video report, not an academic paper. You know how it is. Being interesting is more important than being thorough.
Your piece should be called Top 10 Reasons Echo Depopulated from Evil Mine Murder. You won't believe reason number 2. Like, throw some boobs up on the thumbnail image and post it on the Pueblo website. I frown. I'm used to hearing how the internet age has made modern journalism sort of a joke now, but it still stings. This isn't for the website or anything, this is just a class project. Then it matters even less, dude. You're not even getting paid. Hell, you're paying them thousands. They should give you some slack. I need to build up my portfolio, because right now all it houses is a fluff piece about the Pueblo GSA's Pride concert.
You've still got a few more days, Chase. It isn't like you can't do your project and hang out with us at the same time.
Daxton looks a tad hangdog, speaking up from beside me.
I hope I'm not imposing on y'all's reunion time.
I'll see what I can do, and you're fine, Daxton. The thought strikes me that tomorrow's the day Flynn plans to question TJ. I don't think anyone will be in much of a hanging out mood after that. Maybe I should warn him? After yesterday, I don't know if I should give a damn what Flynn wants. But maybe that's too harsh. Maybe I just don't want to think about him right now. I hear the sound of heavy steps on soil and the wafting smell of cooked meat fills my nose. Glancing up, Leo's standing over me. He holds out a pair of tongs with a plate of bacon and hot dogs. Buns and booze are in the cooler. As if rehearsed, Jenna picks up a small plastic cooler from beside the table. She rips open the packaging and distributes the buns accordingly.
Is it just alcohol in there?
TJ sounds disappointed. I got you some juice pouches, TJ, don't you worry.
Yay, thank you.
He smiles appreciatively. Daxton seems to peer curiously at the link before taking a hot dog for himself. Leo looks a bit reluctant toward Daxton. You guys, eat meat? Daxton's already absolutely covering his hot dog with ketchup. Ketchup? Ketchup.
By you guys, you mean salamanders?
Leo nods. I finally get a bun and begin to assemble my hot dog, wrapping it in bacon.
Yep, we eat meat. My grandpa used to say that you should never trust somebody who doesn't.
Carl looks up.
Except for Carl. He's cool and trustworthy as all hell.
The ram tries to force a tofu dog into his maw to hide the big smile forming on his muzzle. Jenna looks at them curiously, waiting for DJ to finish placing relish on his cut-up, bunless hot dog. Carl swallows, speaking up finally. I guess, your grandpa's at least half-wise, dude, man. Daxton shakes his head.
Nah, not really. He was a major speciesist and hated Jews.
TJ chokes on his juice a little and Jenna passes back a few times. Pff, his grandpa's didn't. TJ stares at them furrow-browed and wide-eyed.
Mine! Boys?
Jenna gives us a look, speaking in that same old maternal tone she's been using since she was 10. I'm really shaking my head. Leo comes around and sits at the remaining spot at the end of the table. Chase! I look up, quickly finishing my bite of bacon. That is my name. Was gonna ask you earlier. I got my speaker set up, hooked up to my playlist on my phone. Pick us out some music, will ya? He gestures to a pill pod looking thing with his phone sticking out of it near the grill. Any guidelines? Stay out of the sample music folder. He smirks. What a callback. I rise up to my feet and head over to the speaker. I pick it up and squint at the phone screen, the overhead sun casting quite a glare. I see a few playlists on here. Which one should I pick? Let me get a drink first. We'll go with this one. Huh. Kinda groovy.
Oh, this is the shit.
Chase must have picked the playlist labeled Seduction.
How do you dance to this kind of music?
TJ just looks sort of perplexed.
However you want to, man.
Daxton makes his way over to me, handing me a spare hard lemonade. I give Daxton a grateful nod, hitting the bottle top against the edge of the grill to get the cap off. Unfortunately, the top just shatters, splaying shattered glass on the ground. Christ! Daxton just laughs, taking a swig of his own drink.
Well, I suppose with that little gesture, it's dancing time.
Jenna stands up as well. I'm not sure if this is her type of music, but she begins swaying to the beat regardless.
Aren't you supposed to do that for a new boat?
I'm still eating my hot dogs. Next thing I know, Leo is up as well, popping his shoulders up and rolling his arms. Leo used to be great at dancing, but that was when he was 4 inches shorter and 40 pounds thinner. He's kind of giving me Dad at a cookout vibes, which in turn is starting to give me a mild midlife crisis by proxy. Despite his questioning of the music choice, TJ soon joins them and balances things out, Link's doing some basic shuffles. I look down at my feet. Ah, fuck it. I'm an otter, right? Natural entertainer. I'm not sure if it's exactly safe to drink out of a bottle with a broken top, but I might as well try. The cuts on my throat will make the alcohol work quicker, right? Daxton still isn't dancing. He's sort of just standing around and shifting his weight from foot to foot. Out of all the people here, I know him the least. Maybe in this circumstance that's for the best. Plus, to hell with it, I'll admit it. He's cute in a kind of slimy, geeky way. Maybe I just have a thing for reptiles and amphibians? Jesus, Chase. Don't get ahead of yourself. I try to unkink my tail, and myself, and approach the tall salamander by the grill. He looks at me with a half smile. Hey.
Hi.
Wanna dance? Daxton quickly looks off to the side, then back to me. He leans forward, speaking so only I can hear.
Aren't you worried about the evil ex? I mean, the not evil, not technically your ex?
I try not to look defensive. Dancing with somebody is not always some sort of romantic action.
Oh, sorry.
He smiles sheepishly.
Like I said in the car yesterday, I'm new to parties.
This is kinda cool. This is nothing, just a gathering of a few friends. You should see real parties like the ones up in Pueblo.
Or the ones back in the smoke room?
He lets out a sharp, amused breath before taking a drink, seemingly in reaction to my wide-eyed expression.
Mike was telling me about what it was like back there. I took 2 separate showers when I got home after that.
I rub the back of my neck, then manage a slightly wry smile. Hot or cold?
Funny.
He exhales from his slitted nostrils.
Remember, I'd like to talk to you later. But for now, I don't mind dancing with you, Chase.
You don't mind? Daxton smirks, shaking his head a bit. As we begin to gyrate our arms and legs in a manner that can be loosely interpreted as dancing, I can practically feel Leo's eyes on my back. Carl makes a joke in between bites of tofu dogs, but I'm not really listening. It feels like just an hour passes. I peel a bit of wallpaper off above the mantel with my thumb. Without all the furniture, the place looks much older than it actually is. I managed to get in by unlocking the front door with one of my credit cards. The deadbolt never worked, and I guess my parents didn't fix it after I left town. Everything kind of smells faintly familiar. Just dustier and without my mom's burning cinnamon incense that seemed to be a constant feature of my childhood. I rest my forearms against the windowsill and let my eyes lull a bit. Otter! Leo smacks his paws on either side of the window, looking up at me from the outside with a pleased expression on his muzzle. Jesus, man! I blink. Why are you shirtless? Leo pulls back some, crossing his arms over his chest. He rolls his shoulders, a sort of indirect shrug. It was getting hot, especially with all that moving around and grilling. I give him a dubious look. Yeah, you're a hot dog, alright. The Red Wolf responds with a delighted smile. I harumph, trying to change gears a bit. You're not, like, self-conscious or anything? I mean, It isn't like the height of football season for you anymore. I flick my gaze toward his stomach. Leo's demeanor cools, though he keeps smiling as if he's trying not to let that one set in too much. He points up toward my chin. Do you dye that? What, my goatee? Is that what you call it? Yeah? He lets out a little humored grunt. What? Seems like a lot of work for a little scruff of hair, yeah? I frown, pushing back away from the window. Leo seems to stiffen some. Hey, I'm just kidding. You look, you look very good. Seeing you dancing and all that takes me back. But you are different. He pushes his tongue against the roof of his mouth, Leo's eyes darting from side to side as he tries to find the right words. I haven't seen him like this since we were younger. I wonder if his English has been getting worse without us around. His family really only speaks the native tongue at home, and I imagine it's the same at the shop he works at. Thanks. I'm honestly not sure how to respond to that. What am I doing that's so different? I can't explain it. You're just like you used to be, just less? I feel a sinking sensation within my chest. Leo suddenly snaps his fingers. Mill it out, that's it. Listen, Leo, you said you wanted to talk, right? Because if your big point is that I'm not a complete spaz anymore, I'm already aware. Leo furrows his white-ridged brow. You never were a spaz, and I was getting to that.
Chase?
I spin around and see the familiar salamander standing anxiously behind me. Oh, hi. Hola, scooter guy. Leo leans past me and waves.
Hey, got time to talk, Chase?
Well then. For those of you who might be reading along at home, you should read both of these if you get the chance. They're both good. I, for now, will be going with the top option. Sure.
Great, thank you.
Chase. When I turn back, Leo's smile has grown more tight, though he tries to play off his reaction. Chase, I've been meaning to talk to you about some things. I just Leo lets out a large breath of air, checking his phone. Fucking Pops, man. He doesn't care whether or not it's my day off. Family helps family. Leo mumbles a few inaudible swears in his native language before looking up at the two of us. He seems to think for a moment. I'll see you guys later. Chase, we're gonna talk. Right. I give him an awkward thumbs up. He nods, turning and making his way offward. Daxton pushes the tips of his fingers together, trepidation upon his face despite his initial request. I'd offer you a seat if this house still had furniture. He lets out a small puff of air, looking around and seeming to acknowledge his environment for the first time.
Carl told me you grew up here.
Yeah. The place isn't as old as it looks, by the way. I think my uncle just really dug the whole prairie aesthetic.
I'm admittedly a wee bit done with that theme at this point.
Growing up in Colville? No surprise there. It's like... I try to find the right word. A facade of a town. Daxton nods slightly, not about to protest that. He turns, walking past the doorway and into the foyer.
Indoor windows, though? Whose idea was that?
What? I follow him. Daxton points to the teak-bordered windows. Surprisingly, none of the glass has been shattered yet. Oh. Well, obviously not mine. My parents enclosed part of the porch when I was like 10. They left the windows, though. Daxton nods as he paces about the room, the floorboards creaking beneath his unpadded feet. And careful where you walk. I wouldn't doubt junkies shoot up in here. That stops the salamander, the blue-eyed fellow shifting his gaze back to me.
Right. Good idea, that.
He sniffs.
So.
I lean against the back wall after a cursory glance, making sure it's spider-free. Daxton says nothing. In fact, he just keeps looking at me. A sense of unease begins to tingle down my spine, and I'm reminded of last night. The way Daxton looked at me in the car as we drove home. He didn't say much the whole ride, thankfully.
I had a dream last night. Can I tell you about it?
I feel a mixture of relief and awkwardness. Sure? Daxton's mouth pulls to one side, his face contorting into a sort of sheepish half-smile.
Well, it wasn't truly like a dream, or nothing of the sort I'm familiar with. Dreams are the sorting and categorizing of the happenings of the day by the subconscious of the mind. You know how they are? Where the sky never looks quite day or night, always some sort of violet or reddish dusky setting. You always have some limited control of what environs surround you, again mainly on the subconscious level. In the dream, if you're worried, then you'll have a right to be worried, like a self-fulfilling prophecy or what have you. Fearing that a bad thing might happen to a loved one? A bad thing will happen to a loved one. Afraid that something scary might be in the room? Then something scary is in the room.
I look around briefly. He gesticulates in a swirling motion to get my attention, shifting to digress.
It's why the stressed, the traumatized, and the guilty get night terrors more than anyone else.
Daxton lets his hands fall to his hips, his eyes trailing downward to the dusty boards beneath my feet.
Lately I've been getting a lot of bad dreams, but ones that seem to, I don't know, I suppose align with me. I'm doing things that I've never done in places I've never been, and that sense of subconscious agency is entirely absent. Like, I'm out of the pines and holding this
Daxton. He looks up. No offense, but, where is this going? Daxton's posture seems to go a little more rigid, the salamander's nostrils flaring as he exhales. I'm beginning to think that Daxton is a lot weirder than I initially thought.
Okay, I'm getting to it. Last night, after you dropped me off, I fell asleep in the recliner in the living room. Shortly after, it felt like I woke up, but I wasn't in the house anymore. I was in some school computer lab I didn't recognize. You were there, except it wasn't you.
He clears his throat.
It was a different you. Younger, louder. Carl and Flynn were kind of standing behind you too, but they weren't saying anything. Sometimes I'd blink my eyes and they were there, and sometimes they weren't. I think words were coming out of your mouth, but I couldn't make anything out. It was like a waterfall was rushing behind me. I started to hate you. I couldn't believe I had hung out with you voluntarily. Like, the sight of you made my stomach hurt.
I blink, frowning some, before opening my mouth to speak. However, Daxton cuts me off, continuing on.
There was something on the computer screen next to you that you kept showing over and over again. It was this other otter, sitting in this bedroom with a big sports poster on the wall.
Other otter?
And he was crying, staring at something in the corner of the room. Again, you were just playing the same scene over and over again. Eventually, you just deleted it outright, and that made me mighty perturbed for whatever reason. I wanted to hit you, so I did.
Daxton sees the deepening frown on my face, and he smiles very slightly, though he quickly goes back to his more serious expression.
It was like I teleported across the room. The next thing I knew, I had grabbed and hit you, but your body had the consistency of loamy sand. You were crumpling and dissolving every time I touched you. Your fur turned gray and speckled, and your face didn't look like you anymore. Everyone else started grabbing me. I recognized Carl's arms, but there were a bunch of others. Even you somehow had a hold on me. No Flynn, though. Hell, I couldn't even see him anymore. I remember calling for him, hoping he was back from that bar. The next thing I know, I'm on a beach. I'm just standing there, watching the tide lick at the sand beneath my feet. Then, there's this...
Daxton pauses, crossing his arms over his chest. He moves across the room to lean against the wall beside me, staring ahead.
Well, it's just this... I don't know what it was. I'm thinking it was a face, but it could have been a weird-ass rock. Kinda reminded me of an electrical outlet. Everything just went dark and I was staring at the rock face, which was staring at me in turn. I was just stuck there, in real time, staring at it for, I guess, around 20 minutes. Then it faded away.
Jesus.
After that, I was at this sort of fort-looking place. Lots of old-timey looking folk around with this trumpet guy emblem everywhere. I kept asking the people around me where I was, but they'd always just shuffle away. I followed this one fox lady with the big old blouse on around a corner, and suddenly I was in Echo again. The sky was wrong, but it was Echo. I walked into my house and saw myself in the kitchen. Flynn, Carl, and you were there too. And Astra was on the TV. There was this uneasiness in the air, because I was pissed about the whole computer lab thing. I wanted to yell at you about it. Carl for grabbing me, Flynn for abandoning me, and the other me for not being the real me.
The salamander rubs his smooth forehead some, then seems to realize something.
You didn't have a goatee either, which I thought was funny at the time. I remember saying, I guess someone shaved off your goatee after all.
I reach up, pinching the excess scruff hanging below my chin. Still there.
You just seemed confused about that.
I'm confused about that now.
Well, hold on. Flynn, Carl, and the other me just vanished at that point. I asked you where they went, and you told me they went outside to, and I quote, jerk each other off.
Wow. You've, only known Carl a day. That's a bit forward.
Be quiet. You were completely different than the you from the computer lab. Older for sure. We sat down, drank beer, and reminisced about things I don't remember. I stopped feeling so uneasy and scared. It's like you melted away all the weird bad shit that had happened prior. It became nighttime, and then you said you were sorry. I asked you why you were sorry, and you hugged me. It was...
The salamander presses his thumbs together, avoiding looking at me now.
The realest thing I've ever felt in a dream. I could feel your heartbeat, the bristle of your fur, the fabric of your shirt, everything.
He touches his own chest, then slowly curls his hand into a fist before letting it fall back at his side.
You told me that to forgive someone is to release a prisoner, and discover that the prisoner was you. You let go of me and began fiddling with something. I heard Flynn laughing and turned around to see him walking through the door. Out of the corner of my eye, you began taking a bracelet off your wrist. You held it up in front of my face and...
Bracelet? Daxton shifts.
Yeah.
Did it have a little metal anchor attached to it?
I don't know, I couldn't really see because, well, Flynn was there, but it wasn't a dream anymore.
What?
He had just gotten home from the bar. Didn't say 2 words to me and beelined to his room. There was no bracelet, of course, because I was wide friggin' awake. I'm guessing the laugh wasn't real either. It never felt like I was asleep in the first place, actually. But I'm left with the feelings of it all. Like, haven't you ever had a dream about somebody and felt completely differently about them afterwards? And I don't mean just like weird puberty sex dreams about your cousins or something like that.
I furrow my brow some. Yeah, I guess. To the former. Are you saying that you feel that way about me now?
I guess. Hence why I'm talking to you.
I go quiet for a second. I'm still not sure how to feel.
Huh.
I don't really know what to make of it, Daxton. I'm not really the eclectic spiritual sort.
Me neither, that's the thing. I mean, I own a Dreamcatcher and a couple New Age albums, but who doesn't?
I raise my paw. Daxton looks at me, slightly rolling his eyes.
Didn't you say yesterday you had something similar happen to you, though? When you passed out at our place?
I pause, then nod. Must have been the fishy cheese bread we ate.
You thought I had a fishy taste too, right? I told Flynn not to put his catches in the damn freezer on top of the other food.
Daxton sighs.
I don't know, Chase. Talking to you about it seemed like a better idea in my mind.
I shake my head, waving my paw to the side. No, it's fine, really. I'm glad that I'm not the only one dealing with this sort of stuff for once. Daxton perks slightly, looking me over.
For once?
Damn, I shouldn't have said anything. I hate trying to explain this. I drift my gaze to the cracked ceiling, staring at the hole where a brass chandelier once hung. I try to put on a nonchalant tone. I, have mental problems or something. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see Daxton cock his head towards me. Smooth. Like sleep paralysis, lucid nightmares, that sort of thing. Sometimes I don't have any problems with them, but as of late, I don't know. I try not to think about it too much, otherwise I get all insomniatic.
Man, that sucks.
They all know about it. I gesture toward the backyard. I can still faintly hear TJ chatting excitedly about something, with Jenna chiming in every now and then. At first everyone thought I was making it all up to be special.
When did you start getting him?
I don't know. Around my tween years.
I used to get really bad nightmares around then. I watched some clown TV movie and it traumatized my effed ass.
Effed? Daxton looks over toward me, seeming to realize the need for clarification.
Tadpole.
Oh. Cute. Daxton sputters out a dismissive noise.
I was not cute.
Well, neither was I. I was kind of a shithead. Daxton peers at me for a moment before his gaze trails up toward the brown fur on my scalp. It takes me a second to register. I mean, regarding how I treated other people.
Gotcha.
I reach up, trying to make my head fur lay flatter. Daxton, meanwhile, reaches into his pocket and checks his phone. Neither of us says anything for a while.
I'm gonna head out, but thank you for listening and such.
Oh? Yeah, no problem, man. You gonna go home and do some writing?
I think I might. Either that or put on some New Age music.
I'm sure Flynn loves that.
What sort of music does Flynn like?
I don't think he does.
What?
I don't think he listens to music, like, in general.
Who doesn't like music?
I shrug. Someone like Flynn, I guess.
Makes sense to me.
He shoves his phone back into his pocket, stepping forward.
Hey, since chances are I probably won't see you again, I just wanted to say it was good meeting you.
I find myself smiling, in spite of the previous tone of the conversation. Likewise.
Thanks for introducing me to Carl. Never had a rich friend before.
You lived in Colville. How have you never had a rich friend?
Hey, I didn't live in the ritzy tourist-packed part of it. Plus, I was homeschooled.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Pfft, shithead.
He grins some, and I can see the pink of the inside of his mouth. It's quite the contrast from the rest of him.
I feel a bit better now. See ya, Chase.
Bring it in. Alright, self-fulfilling prophecy, here it comes.
Here, what come?
Oof! I move to embrace him with a bit more velocity than I initially intended, nearly sending the tall amphibian back against the wall. He lets out a bemused noise, patting my back. I return the gesture before pulling away.
Almost as graceful a dancer as you are a hugger. Now, time to find Carl.
With that, he turns and heads out toward the backyard. Looking around, I don't see any sign of Leo. In fact, his van's no longer out front. I reach into my pocket, feeling my phone as a guilty sensation takes hold. I just know I'm probably going to get a whole nother wave of passive-aggressive text messages that I don't want to deal with. At this point, I probably deserve them. I can't keep dodging him like this. I notice something odd sitting on top of the water heater. Curious, I pick it up. Oh. I never knew Mom framed this. I mean, it was just a shitty selfie I took my first day at Pueblo. She kept insisting I send her a picture of myself on my big day. For some reason, I thought not smiling or looking at the camera was the cool thing to do. I wonder if they forgot this during the move. Though, it kinda sucks. I wouldn't be surprised if they left it on purpose. I haven't talked to them much lately. I should go. And I should get a drink. I step outside. The air is still kinda hazy, and the smell of hot dogs is pretty palpable. I look over across the yard. TJ and Jenna are sitting at the table. TJ's munching down on his third helping of cut-up hot dogs, while Jenna sits up top with her feet hanging off the side. It's kind of funny how small she is, like she never grew up past age 13. My mind drifts back to the other Phoenix in the smoke room. They all kind of had that youthful appearance to them. I wonder if that's part of the appeal.
I'm surprised you were so comfortable walking around in there.
I glance over my shoulder, looking back at the weather-worn house. Huh? Why?
The spiders. You are still afraid of them, right?
I had been trying not to think about that the whole time, actually. I felt like there were lots of them in the house, even when I lived in there. And that was with my parents bug bombing the place every month. I resist the urge to reach down and rub my feet, in case there were any walking around in my fur. Not, like, deathly. I crossed my arms over my chest, tugging some at the fabric of my shirt.
Right, of course.
TJ snickers some. Jenna pulls out her phone, beginning to tap away the digital keypad.
By the way, we found something else that might help you out with your project.
Oh?
It's in my purse. Could you grab it?
Sure, what is it? Jenna doesn't answer, continuing her texting. TJ, meanwhile, seems to be grinning at his empty ketchup-covered plate. Jenna? I move over to the purse, unbuttoning the main flap. I've always been a bit wary about going through girls' purses, for obvious reasons. The first thing I notice, though, is a piece of folded paper with Chase written in all capital letters on the top. It looks like there's something wedged inside of it as well. Curious, I pull back the top of the paper and feel something fuzzy against my paw pads, then a bristling sensation. Thin, prodding things tickle the tips of my fingers. I squeeze one and yank it up. Dangling before me is an orange and black tarantula, its limbs bouncing from the sudden pull of force. Jesus fuck! I toss it down to the dirt, it seeming to bounce right back up and land sideways on my foot. I scramble back, kicking at it with as much force as I can muster. Shit! My chest heaves and I feel like my heart is about to burst from my chest. The tarantula doesn't move, and that's when I realize TJ and Jenna are grinning at me. Jenna has her phone pointed in my direction. Jesus, she's filming this.
Language! It's just rubber, Chase.
That... I point at the limp, 8-legged thing that's now 3 yards away, stuck in a patch of goat head brambles. That is not funny!
It is, actually. Aw, I'm so sorry, Chase. It was Jenna's idea. It was 99 cents at that gas station we stopped at back in Two Canyons.
Ugh, no wonder you two wouldn't let me see what you bought. Did you guys actually have anything for me? I mean, regarding my project. TJ begins to look even more guilty. Jenna sets her phone down and goes about reclasping her purse.
Not really, Chase. As you said, there wasn't much information about the 1877 happening. Most search results directed us toward dubious ghost hunting websites, with no source veracity that could be utilized in a formal report.
Well, I sigh, stilling my swaying tail and feeling calm once again. Was there anything that could be used in a non-formal report? The Finnick cocks her head, her eyes seeming to look right through me as she thinks, before meeting my gaze once again.
What do you want to know more about? The UFO spotted over Echo Canyon by a group of night hikers? The Meseta ghost woman who wanders along the edges of the res, seducing men before impaling them on the branches of mesquite trees? Or perhaps the Mothman, who now apparently has been seen driving a semi-truck down Route 93 at midnight? Maybe he needed a side job? The economy has been tough lately.
I let out an exasperated noise. Ugh, okay, I get your point.
Although, there were lots of mentions of the riots here. That includes the happenings in 1915, as well as some other unsourced stuff about violence after World War II. Just a general perception that we were all a bunch of desert malcontents living in some sort of Sodom and Gomorrah-style situation for a century.
Sounds about right.
We even had a famous brothel that served all the miners in the area.
A brothel? I look at TJ, who is frowning acknowledgingly. Does he really not know? It's a place where they make broth and other types of soup.
I know what a brothel is.
Jenna merely smirks and shakes her head.
It was called the Smoke Room.
Wait, what? I tense up, and they seem to notice.
Chase, is something wrong?
The Smoke Room.
Yeah?
That still exists. I was there last night.
You went to a brothel last night.
Jenna says this less as a question, more of a deadpan matter of fact. What? No, it was this bar that Flynn went to. It's right by the casino. There's no sign for it or anything, and it's like some sort of gay bar.
A gay bar? In this county?
At least, that's what it seemed like it was. I shrug, trying to phrase this as carefully as I can without going too much into details. Everything smelled like cigarettes, and there was this really shady back room that they called the Smoke Room.
That's...
Jenna presses her knuckle to her lower lip, seemingly in thought. She glances up toward me after a moment.
Interesting.
With that look, I regret bringing it up already. Jenna seems to be maintaining this sort of intrigued expression. I begin bracing for any follow-up questions.
What sort of music did they play there?
Surprisingly, TJ is the first to speak. I don't see any sign of judgment on his face either, just genuine curiosity. Oh, it was kind of weird, actually. It was this sort of droning, bassy synth stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Never heard anything like it. It was kind of loud, too. I'm not sure why you're asking? It's TJ's turn to shrug.
Just curious. So, you went to a gay bar with Flynn named after an old famous brothel?
I exhale, resting my paws on the edge of the table. It's not like that.
Like what?
Daxton, Carl, and I followed him after he left us in the middle of hanging out last night. But he sort of... Well, I think he was trying to invite me to go along with him in his own sort of way. He left his phone behind with just one text message on it with the address. I think he wanted to see if I was interested enough to snoop through his phone instead of outright inviting me. It's hard to explain.
Oh no, I understand completely. That sounds quite like Flynn. Very non-committal, and giving himself something that he can hold against you, if need be, to protect himself from having any semblance of vulnerability.
Jenna rubs the bridge of her small nose, still seemingly frustrated with Flynn's behavior. She reaches down, picking up a paper plate from beside her and shoving it in a plastic bag.
I'm ready to head back to the motel. Chase, are you coming?
Oh, sure. TJ begins cleaning up as well, moving to drag the picnic table back into the appropriate yard. I help. We're gonna call it here for today, and we will pick up with the rest of Friday later. You will see why next time. Until then, thanks for watching, everybody. See ya!